Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. We're going to take a look here at Spinning Jenny, that is to say Jenny Gilruth, who, with the latest numbers and figures out in the educational world, is trying to spin the truth so much it makes your head whirl. It certainly does for her. She is going to do everything and anything to make it look as though it's not her fault that the education system in Scotland is continuing to fail. Just this week, we saw the latest tables out showing yet again another fall in standards in Scottish schools, and yet again a failure that she's trying to blame on others and not on herself. That's before we even look at some of the announcements made and how it's being humorously renamed, which we'll do in the main part. We're too early in the video to start saying those sort of words. But once we get into the main part of the video, we will have a look and see what they're actually calling these things. But it is a case of Jenny, once again, trying to spin her way out of trouble and blame other people. Probably going to be Westminster's fault, isn't it, Jenny? Won't be yours. No. Let's have a look, see what's going on. Here goes. So, Jenny Gilruth, simplistic blame shifting over education results in a lamentable interview. Now, before we get there, I'll just say that there was an announcement she made about what she called. We won't do the story. It's just a throwaway line, but I think it was educationally related, and it was about what she announced, this new policy, what she called the Curriculum for Excellence, and literally announced that. And then there was a phone in, and Kay Adams, I think it was, on Radio Scotland, BBC Scotland, whatever it was, one of the shows, I can't remember off the top of my head. This teacher rang in and called it not the Curriculum for Excellence, but a Curriculum for Excrement. And I think that really sums up Scottish educational policy. It literally is a huge pile of shit. Led, of course, by this woman. A woman who herself was a teacher. You'd think you'd know, wouldn't you, Jenny? But no. And so this week the results have been announced, and she's trying to spin these to be anything other than what they are, which is absolutely woeful and shameful and awful. And they're all her fault. She's the minister. She's not delivering. She's incapable of doing a job that she's been given. But that applies, of course, to everyone in the SNP. Anyway, the SNP Education Secretary has been subjected to tough criticism of her government's record as she attempts to spin dire results and quash comparisons with England. Oh yes, we mustn't look at what other countries are doing. We must say that Scotland's doing brilliantly well. It's the world leader in Scotland. Meanwhile, England doing so much better, but they don't want to acknowledge that because it is a very bad comparison. That is the worst comparison of all for the SNP. How dare the English children do better than the Scottish children? What with them with more investment in the education system? And look at England as it's not constantly pushing for independence from Scotland, etc. It's a joy. The thing is, I was about to say, it's a joke. It really isn't. This is children's entire futures being destroyed through deliberate policy by people like her. You'd think as a teacher, she'd want to uplift these children, do the best for them. And instead, they're deliberately destroying everything. Jenny Gilruth's attempt to explain her government's educational record has been dubbed lamentable, as recent data cemented the overall decline in attainment. Now remember, they were already failing, and so to get worse from the position they were in, it's quite a job. It's got to be active. It's got to be an active destruction. It isn't just accidental. They've got to be out there, and the policy is to create an incredibly uneducated, stupid population so that nobody's got the wit or intelligence to challenge the SNP on anything because they don't know what they're talking about. That's the only explanation for what they're doing. The Education Minister told STV Scotland Tonight that we need to be quite careful about drawing comparisons between the United Kingdom. No, we don't need to be careful. You need to be careful. You need to be very, very careful because you know it will show you up as being a failure. The rest of us need to know exactly what the comparisons are and see why Scotland is doing so badly. Let's not spin this, Jenny. You're a failure, your party's a failure, and the people paying the price are the kids who's having their futures destroyed out of your deliberate policy. The Scottish Conservatives said no one bought the minister's spin and added that those who work in the sector will be disgusted that Jenny Gilruth merely continues the simplistic blame-shifting, facile analysis and lack of action that characterises this failing SNP government. I'm also going to say that one of the big problems you've got in schools in Scotland is there is an awful lot of indoctrination rather than education. And when you're spending and pushing policies that say you must teach kids this, you must teach this, oh, you must teach them there's 48 genders, you must push sexuality onto children in schools constantly, consistently and permanently, rather than teaching them reading, writing and arithmetic, rather than teaching them history, geography, physics, science, rather than teaching them actual core subjects that they're going to need in an ever-changing, ever-advancing world. And you're busy teaching them about sexuality, gender and pushing filth and degenerate scumminess onto children at incredibly young ages, asking 5-year-olds what they think about when they're touching themselves. SNP did that. They absolutely did that, and I'm never letting that one go. Then you can see why school results are so bad. The kids aren't going in to learn, they're going in to be indoctrinated into the SNP's worldview. And then they come out and they join a world where the rest of the world isn't putting up with that shit, and they're automatically disadvantaged. People of Scotland, take your kids out of the schools and educate them at home if you can. You'll do the far, far better job of it than you'll get in a school. And I'm not blaming necessarily the teachers, because the teachers have to obey the rules, and the rules are set, of course, by Jenny Gilruth. The backlash to the schools has become so great that a teacher told a BBC phone-in that the SNP school programme, the Curriculum for Excellence, literally, same page, brilliant, big brain people. Curriculum, they call it the Curriculum for Excrement because it's not fit for purpose. As I say, it's a great big steaming pile of shit. Speaking to STV, Miss Gilruth said, we have to be careful in relation to our statistical comparisons. Because, of course, the PISA results are based on a survey you can't replicate across the piece. So we need to be quite careful about drawing comparisons between the United Kingdom. Well, no, because the same rules apply to the schools in England as they do to Scotland on the PISA results. They're the same rules. You can't just say, these rules are very difficult to replicate. Yeah, but it doesn't matter if they're difficult to replicate. At the time the survey was taken, the rules applied to all. They are level playing field rules. And so therefore, if England, which did do much better than Scotland, are doing better, you have to ask why. And we know why. It's because in England, there's no SNP. There's no one destroying deliberately the educational future of children by their policies, by their deliberate policies. The standards in education in Scotland have been falling for so long. Sturgeon, 10 years ago, pulled the results from the International League tables because even then she was so embarrassed and did nothing, and still cut year on year in real terms funding for education. It is deliberate. The only area of funding that has never been cut under the SNP is independence. And who's paying the price? Your children and your grandchildren. And they're going to pay the price for the rest of their lives because they can never catch up with what the SNP have done to them. She said, Scotland's downward trajectory actually in that respect mirrors those of similar countries within the OECD. Oh, I see. So you're justifying your failure because other countries are failing too. That's great, isn't it? Tell the people, tell the kids. Sorry, kids, you're getting a really shitty education. But don't worry, other people are getting a shitty education too. So everything's good. That's not how it works, Gilruth, you prick. Well, hardly that, is it? But, you virago there. I don't know. I can't think of a name for her. She's another one that just annoys the shit out of me. Anyway, look at that face. There's a face of a woman who doesn't care, isn't it? Anyway, Scottish Conservative Shadow Education Secretary Liam Kerr said Jenny Gilruth's response to the PISA rankings is as lamentable as the decline in the education standards the SNP government is presiding over. She tried first to gloss over the findings. In a press release ludicrously entitled Scottish Education Maintains International Standing. It didn't maintain, it went down, and its standing is so appallingly low that it should be nothing you should be proud of. Then, when no one bought that spin, she went after the damning PISA findings, dismissing them as offering merely a snapshot and warning against drawing comparisons across the UK. This, despite one of her many predecessors, John Swinney, acknowledging that PISA are the gold standard for educational standards across the world and are specifically designed to enable comparison between nations. This education secretary is all over the place on the issue, he said. and unable to defend the SNP's abysmal record on education, and is incapable of articulating any solutions. Parents and grandparents of Scotland, make sure your children are not put in a position where this woman is responsible for their education. She is setting out deliberately to destroy it. I'm coming up. They have to lie, they have to deflect, they have to spin, and they have to do everything they can rather than admit the problem. The problem is that they are deliberately, by policy, destroying education in Scotland. The Scottish education system used to be one of the best in the world. It was admired. People came from all over the world to come to Scotland to be educated. Now it's down there with Malawi. It is that bad. And for years and years, it's been consistently getting worse. It's a downward trend that has continued for years. And they've done nothing. And they've known. So therefore, it must, by definition, be deliberate. Continually cutting investment, not building schools, not investing in the future, not building new technologies, not considering that the children of Scotland are important in any way. Certainly not as important as, say, independence, a dream, a pipe dream that will never happen, but which the future of Scottish children will pay the ultimate price, their future. I'll stop there. Thank you very much for watching. I do hope that suitably opened your eyes, and those of you who are in a position to remove your children from school should do so forthwith, because they're not learning anything other than how many genders there are. They're certainly not learning reading, writing, arithmetic, science, history, geography, you name it. It's all sex. It's all push, push, push. Sexualisation of children for a bunch of corrupt, perverted tossers of the SNP. Till next time, and it will be a better one next time, stay safe, stay well, and I will speak to you later. Bye.